it's a conversation with English people.
Yes.
Huh?
Yes.
Not all of them are Ahmadis, of course. Huh?
Yes.
She's not, yes.
European.
She's a guest visitor. Right. So, how's life?
Very well, thank you.
And you are counted halfway or British or what? Or Scottish? Would you like to? Would you prefer to be called a Scot or an Englishman?
A Scot.
Scot, yes.
Depends which football team is winning.
There is only one.
All right, let's turn to business now, huh? Please.
Hazur, Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam, rahmatullah.
The promised Messiah, alayhi salatu wasalam, was born on the 13th of February 1835 and passed away on the 26th of May 1908.
That's correct.
Now,
correct, yes.
very recently, I've been advised that the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was also born on the 13th of February in 570 AD, and he passed away on the 26th of May 632. It seems a miracle.
That is something which was also brought to my notice, and I asked the scholars to further investigate this point, because it has to be definitely verified with reference to history books. And you know, there is not one single date attributed to the birth of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and not a single year either. So when there is a possibility of difference of opinion as to which day he was born and which year, then we have to go into all these details. But if the spectrum or the suggested dates includes this date as well, definitely, and we can trace it to some great scholar, and if the spectrum on the other hand also contains the suggested date of 26th of May, then of course there will be more to it than just accident.
Yes.
Then let the readers, decide for themselves. Instead of claiming it to be a miracle of exact nature, we can say it's a very strange coincidence.
Yes.
So for the thinking mind, it presents something to wonder at.
For one date,
yes,
you know, it would be coincidence, say the date of birth, but for the date of birth and date of departure...
as far as that is concerned, we say possible coincidence. Because the date of death or demise is very clear. Everybody knows it. There are no two opinions about that.
Yes.
Because it happens in the case of every prophet, every great man, in fact. When somebody is born, he is born an ordinary child, and nobody, goes to any trouble to record the birth and things. And so there is very little evidence, particularly as we travel back in history.
Yeah.
Less and less evidence would be found as to the nature of birth and where it took place and how it took place. Most of it is decided by myths and things. But the death is very clear,
Yes.
Every great man, when he dies, it's an event worth taking note of, and it's well recorded in history.
Yes.
So that is why about Jesus' birth himself, there's so many opinions, Some antedate the birth by 8 years to the accepted date of birth, and some by 4 years and so on. So one thing is definite, that according to the scholars, he was not born on the date from which the year Christian era begins, He was born sometime earlier.
Yes.
That solves many problems for us as well.
Yes.
And creates many other coincidences. But of that I'll speak later, maybe one day.
Yes.
For the time being, this is my reaction to what you suggested. It's very interesting, but ask some scholars in Rabwa. I already sent a message to them, but to pursue it further and let me know.
In my attempt to try and find the truth, I contacted the Central Mosque at Regent's Park to see what their version was, and none of the non-Ahmadi Muslims could tell me the date of death of the Holy Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam.
Not even dead?
No.
Imagine.
Thank you, sir.
Please.
Your Holiness, my question concerns music, and it was something that occurred to me
whilst I was watching the VE Day celebration concert or service from the London Synagogue, and the musical content of that service was absolutely beautiful, and music is such an integral part of Christian worship. I realised it was also such a strong tradition within the Jewish faith, and I am puzzled why it hasn't remained within Islam.
That, I think, is also one of the distinctive features of Islam. At its nascent period. But when you speak of Islam as a whole and give the right representation to the Muslims of the present age, then you find music playing as much a role in Islamic functions and celebrations as in other religions of the world. So this is a very important study. Why not in the beginning and why at the end?
Yes.
So when you turn to the beginning of all religions, you see the same thing repeated. Music did not play any role in the life of Jesus Christ. It did not play any role in the life of Moses, in the life of Abraham. So a strange new scenario rises before your eyes. People in the beginning of religions who have been trained by the very founders of religion pay no importance to music whatsoever. It's not counted among their factors of, of any importance. But as they travel further in time, the followers of a prophet or whatever name you give to the founder begin to gradually shift in the direction of music for an artificial prop to their sentiments. That is my inference. You see, if you are truly religious, the memory of God brings, all that is musical within you to sort of vibrate in rhythm with the attributes of Allah. That is the most sublime music which is created in the nearness of God, and that is what was experienced by all prophets of Allah in the beginning and their followers. When the religions begin to die out gradually, become only nominal, when there is a shell of religion but no live myth or spirit within, then you need excitement, somehow related to religious values, and music comes to your aid then. That is the history of music in relation to all religions. No choirs would be ever heard of in the early Christianity, even up to 300 years. After the revolution, what took place in 308 or thereabout,
yes.
Then gradually you see music, creeping into the celebrations of Christians. And this is a universal phenomenon. That's a fantastic thing. Everywhere in the world the same story is repeated. So Islam is not singled out in any way. It is in line with all the other religions. Thank you. Please.
Sir, I believe it was Benjamin Franklin who said, "Nothing in life is certain save death and taxes."
That's right.
Given that there is so much uncertainty these days throughout the world, what do you see as the major challenges facing the Ahmadi movement between now and the next millennium?
Now, first of all, please help me understand the relation between this question and the basis which you created for that.
Well, we seem to be living we seem to be living in a world where things change very rapidly, and for many people there is no certainty in life from day to day.
That's right.
And I wondered if you could equate that to the Ahmadi movement and what you see as the major challenges facing us.
So as far as the rapidity of change is concerned, it's a relative factor. Whenever you look back at man progressing in so many ways or degrading in so many ways, make a cross-section of history anywhere, and the ratio of feeling between man and the time, would be exactly the same. Time passes either rapidly or too slowly. This is not something new. Although, because it's an age of higher advancement of science and achievements of science by way of fast travel and this and that, we can say definitely that we are moving faster. But go back in time, make a cross-section of history anywhere in time. This exactly would be the feeling of man of that period in relation to the earlier people. You see, he would be standing on the summit, he doesn't know what is yet to come. Looking back from that vantage point of the summit, you would say, life was so slow earlier, now it's making a pace. So, at this stage, what we know is that there is a sort of, it's not a speed with which life is moving. It's an acceleration which is controlling the change. More we move towards some end which is designed by God, more rapid the rate of change becomes. That is the important thing. So, whatever we have achieved, if we stick to our values, the pace of our achievement would also be multiplied by many factors, as in future the pace of everything is quickened. So that is one thing. But if we are not cautious, then the pace of rapid deterioration would also be very awesome, very threatening in fact. Only this much I can say about the future. That is why, during my last so many sermons, I'm repeatedly reminding the Jamaat to stand guard over their values. Don't care much about the number and the worldly achievements they have. Stand guard, jealously guard over their values. Because it is the values which are the guarantee for our future. And particularly in a fast-moving machine, cautiousness plays a greater and more important and vital role. If you are riding a donkey, you may meet with an accident, but neither the donkey would be much hurt, nor you perhaps. But if you are moving in a racing car, of course a slight mistake would result in fatal accidents and sort of misery spread all over, shattered as the car is, so also the misery is scattered all over. This is also applicable to the progress of life on earth. The more rapid its pace becomes, more cautious and conscious should the operators of life should become. And this is, I think, all that I can say in answer to your question. The rest, the future only will say. I remember, when I was a student here, way back in 50s, a song was very popular. To turn a corner, every street, you go to, you would hear this music, subdued or sometimes loud. And the wording was so really fascinating. Que sera, sera. What will be, will be. The future is not for us to say whatever it is. Que sera, sera, whatever will be, will be. That still lingers in my memory, and it had a very profound effect on me. And this is an answer to that. If you listen to that music again, remember that is my answer.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Please. You have a question as well?
Yes.
Okay, yes.
Are
Are you the eldest grandson of Bashir Archard Sahib?
Not the eldest, the
Grandson.
the second one, yeah?
Yes, I'm second eldest.
You have an elder brother?
Yes.
Acha, by the name of?
Fareed.
Fareed, I see. I thought, of course, the girls of the second generation are older than he is, or no? Do you have the oldest grandson or oldest granddaughter?
Grandson.
Yes.
I'm the eldest grandson.
Grandson. His elder brother is the oldest
Yes.
of the second generation. Right.
That's
Please.
Are we allowed to donate our organs after we die to medical research?
Of course, there is no harm whatsoever to support life, but to counter the direction of life is bad, which is wrong. God has made it clear to us that life is a thing of great sanctity. It should be honored, it should be protected, it should be preserved as best as possible. That is why, although eating of pig and swine, flesh of swine, is so forbidden, but if you face a situation where you're threatened with starvation, Allah tells you eat the flesh of pig, so light. So to save life is very important. So anything, any human activity which is working in the direction of helping life to survive and retain its better quality, that is in line with the spirit of Islam. I don't see any objectionable thing against it. Right? Please.
Assalamu alaikum, Hazar. I read some time ago that the three powers in the world were capitalism, communism and Islam, and that Islam embodies good characteristics of communism and capitalism. My question is that when the day comes of world order and world peace, and that Islam, Ahmadiyyat, is at the helm of it, would the concept of money have any meaning when that day arrives?
You see, if the money loses its meaning, man will lose the purpose for his life and enjoyment. Whichever way you look at it, money is merely power, a convertible power, no more, no less. It's a source of energy. So even the most pious need a source of energy for employment in good things of life. So don't put money into the category of an evil thing. Money, if you deeply understand it, is neither evil by itself nor good. It's just a source of liquid energy, which is convertible to any commodity you like. So if spent in the right cause, money can be of great advantage to the spiritual, to the religious, and if earned rightly as well, then of course it's a source of blessing. I can give one example from the life of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Once some poor people approached him and said, the wealthier among us have an edge over us by way of offering sacrifices which we cannot share. They offer financial sacrifices. Whenever you make an appeal that Islam needs money and sacrifice, they come forward and give you large sums of money. And we keep yearning for it. We want to do something. We have nothing to do, nothing can be done by us. We have nothing to offer. So the answer to that was, shall I tell you something which will put you at par with your rich and wealthier and more fortunate brothers? I said, of course, please. He said, when you finish the prayer, repeat 33 times this attribute of God, 33 times that, and 34 times that attribute of God, and contemplate on the memory of Allah before you depart for your homes. In that way, whatever you lack in money will be provided you by way of a means of gaining Allah's favor. So they were happy they were doing it, but the rich got the wind of it, They said, oh, why are they sitting behind? Why don't they leave the mosque? So they investigated privately and they found the answer. And they also started doing this, So they approached the Holy Prophet once again, the poor, I said, look here, yeah, so what can we do? They have also started doing this and they have gained the same advantage over us once again. So he said, when Allah has blessed somebody, what can I do to offset that? So money in that case was a sign of blessing. And if Allah has blessed somebody, He is the master, He can do it. He is not answerable to anybody. So justice only relates to men who do not own things, or relates to men only in the area where they do not own things. But in the area where they own things, they can dispense with them as they please. Nobody can say you have not acted justly. You gave him a gift of that, you gave him a gift of that. Why didn't you give a gift to me? You say it's a question of gift, it's my priority, my prerogative. I can do that. So money can be a source of great blessing as well. The other day I was reading a passage from Hazrat Masih Islam, who said that who has stopped you from earning? No one. God does not require you to sit idle. He would like you to work hard and also earn money if you please. But don't go under the money. Stay on top and above it. Use it to the advantage of mankind, to the advantage of your fellow brothers who are suffering so much. Use it for the sake of Islam, to spend it in the cause of Islam. So if you don't have any money, what can you do? So this is the answer to your question of money. It can be turned either way, right?
Can be.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, please.
I would like to ask you...
3 generations sitting in order, in rising order from the step by step.
I would like to ask you something on the subject of sinlessness, or living a life free of sin.
Right.
There are 3 points, 3 parts to my question. First of all, according to the Quran, I understand all prophets of God are sinless. It is not possible for them to commit a sin.
No, it's usually that it is possible for them to commit a sin, but they don't.
Well, I understand that God has decreed that He divinely protects them from committing a sin.
That is another question. But when you frame the question like this, that it is not possible for them to commit sin, then the advantage of being sinless is washed overboard. Then they become a mere pawn in the hands of laws, and it is not to their advantage that they are sinless. Sin and sinlessness are created only in a position of choice. When choice was created and given to man, then the concept of sin and sinlessness also came to be born along with it. So, in view of what I have said, you can reframe your question and then I'll answer it. Maybe I've answered your question, I don't know, but would you please reframe the question? Don't call it don't describe it as a position of helplessness of the prophets, that they are sinless. They were not helpless against sin. I mean, helpless in the sense that they could not commit sin. It is not so. They could commit sin. Challenges were always confronting them. And every time they went through whole unscathed. That is their sinlessness.
So my question is, are prophets under divine protection from being able to commit sin?
No, that is in a different, this is why I said this is a different question altogether. Once God decides to make someone a prophet, his past attitude towards the favor of Allah or displeasure of Allah naturally is counted as a factor before the choice is made. So if the past life is sinless in the sense that this man, though yet not made a prophet, behaved so correctly in every challenging situation, so I should appoint him as my representative. That is the first phase. And the proof that in that phase they are sinless is found in the verse whereby the Holy Quran, or Allah we should say, tells the Prophet of Allah, addressing those who have rejected him and denied him and considered him to be a man of no character. Allah says, tell them, invite their attention to the fact, فَقَدْ لَبِسْتُ فِيكُمْ أُمُرًا مِّن قَبْلِهِ أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ. Have I not spent a full lifetime before you, prior to my claim to be a divine messenger? What fault did you find with that life when even I was not made a prophet? So if this was my character before God chose me to work as his messenger, and altogether the whole society is a witness to the fact that I led an innocent life, then what right have you got to find fault with me after I have become a representative of God? It becomes even more impossible for me to commit sin. So that is the meaning. Even before they were made prophets, they led a life which was clear, well poised and honest. But when they become prophets, then it is not just their own life they are responsible for. Then they are made responsible for the whole community. And then the errors of judgment, of human failure, etc., can play sometimes havoc with the peace of the society, where you are leader not only of the religious world but also of the entire spiritual world. So there you need a special protection from Allah, that your errors of judgment will never be permitted to play a negative role in your decision making. This is the meaning of that extra protection. Right? Thank you. Please.
So the word charity, when one mentions the word charity, one thinks of giving to the poor, and yet I've heard hadith where it said that prayer is charity. How can that be?
Which hadith is that?
I haven't got it.
Because the context of that hadith will lead me to the answer.
I see. In that case,
we'll bring it again.
Yes, I'll withdraw that one. Can I ask another one then, please?
Right, please do.
Hazrat Isa, alayhi salatu wasalam, said that the law is a curse.
He didn't say that.
Well,
it was St. John, St. Paul.
St. Paul.
St. Paul who said that.
Oh, I'm not doing very well, am I?
Right.
Did he mean the Mosaic law was cursed?
Certainly not. Most certainly not. You see, this is the dilemma which was faced by the Pauline Christians in the beginning. Now, he was the one who began the breakaway movement in Christianity from its parent stock of Judaism. Now, what justification did he have? Was Judaism altogether wrong? Or was it an experimental phase in history which was discarded after it had reached its purpose and fulfilled its purpose? So, judging from this and from some addresses of Jesus Christ to these hollow, meaningless religious leadership of Judaism, which was hypocrite. They claimed other things, they presented other things, and deep inside they were empty of the substance and spirit of the message. So Jesus Christ, peace be upon him, started to wage a war against this evil, and sometimes emphasized it so much as if he rejected the whole law altogether, but he never did. What he meant was, you say this something else, do something else. What you say, what is on your lips is not in your heart. Live a life of honesty and concentrate on the spirit of religion. So to draw attention to the people, the Jewish people of that time, to the spirit rather than letter of religion, he used some very strong language sometimes. Now, St. Paul got a handle for him to distort Christianity from then on. He said what Jesus Christ meant was that the law it was which had created a curse. If there was no law to break, there would be no curse. That is how he redeemed mankind from sin. See, a very clever device but meaningless. If that was so, then God himself was responsible for all the crimes committed before Jesus Christ. Because why did he present them with the instrument which would generate crime at every level of human activity? Why did he make laws at all? Why not leave them in the same confusion and chaos where there will be no guiding light? So it was a total failure at the part of Saint John, no Saint Paul, to understand the philosophy of religion and the philosophy of law, or a willful attempt to mislead the Christians of the second generation.
Yes.
The Christians of the first generation were not misled. There is no doubt about it. Those who were trained by Jesus Christ himself, they kept loyal to their adherence to Judaism. That was the early fight between Pauline and Jacobites. You see, they try to gain the upper hand. And that is why gradually Christianity shifted from its mainland to Roman land and foreign lands, where these sort of crooked philosophies, were a part of their mythical understanding of God and his workings. But the people who were trained by Jesus himself remained steadfast and adamant in holding on to Judaism as a stock religion, and they never permitted to deviate from that. Even they also stuck to the circumcision, for instance. Even to that detail. Gradually, with the passage of time, it is always so that the truth itself begins to weaken in the end, and the falsehood becomes predominant. This is the unfortunate tragic history of every religion. But when I say that, this can be verified from the study of history of all religions. Yet there is something very tricky about it which has to be understood. On the one hand, the Holy Quran says, like other religions also claim, that truth is predominant. Truth must prevail. And it is for the falsehood to fly away, to flee from the presence of truth, like it is for the darkness to be dispelled in the presence of light. Why then do you say, or why do we observe that gradually falsehood again predominates and makes the truth to fly away? So what is this irregularity? There is no consistency in these two things. The answer to that lies in some observations of the Holy Quran, whereby it is said that truth is not an external existence, external presence. It is within every man. If a man has internal truth, inner truth, only then he will be kept on the external truth which descends from heaven. Where the two meet, that is the point of elation of truth. Where it, like, in some scientific phenomenon, in laser for instance, when the two lights meet, suddenly there is a flare and it becomes highly intensified. So when you have the inner truth, only then you can benefit from the outer truth, and the meeting of the two makes you enlightened like never before. But when you lose the touch with your own inner truth, when you let it be distorted, then the truth would not work like it is mentioned in the Holy Quran that when it comes, the falsehood runs away and it has no room to stand. So what we observe in the history is not a weakening of truth, but a distortion of the people who were made custodian of truth. They changed, and according to the change, God deprived them of the benefit of truth. So what was defeated was falsehood, not truth. Hazrat Masih Islam has likened it unto the human sight. Also in the Holy Quran we have this, of course. The root of this is found in the Holy Quran. Hazrat Masih Islam, elaborating on this, says that eyes work as inner light, and sun or other sources of light provide means for this inner light to begin to be conscious of things around. If there is no external light, the inner light of such a man who has eyes will somehow manage to see few things, even in utter darkness. The eye expands and, a makeshift arrangement is made. But if there is no inner light, then whatever the measure of intensity of outer radiation, it would not help in the least the man who is deprived of that faculty of sight. So these two are complementing factors. That is why the Holy Quran, right in the beginning, warns us that we have made a claim that it is the perfect book which was promised for mankind. Yet remember, Hudal lil Muttaqeen. It will only guide the righteous, the God-fearing. On the one hand, it has come to make the people righteous. On the other hand, it claims that it can lead only the righteous to the path. So what a circle, like egg or chicken problem, which is first? That is the question. But the Holy Quran uses that term not in the sense of righteousness of a people trained in the values of religion. It only refers to the very beginning of the meaning of righteousness, which takes root in man's attitudes towards truth or towards falsehood. In English idiom, you can describe the meaning of this righteousness is referred to as to be able to call a spade a spade. If you are able to call a spade, the Holy Quran says, then you will be led. But if not, then no amount of divine guidance will be able to help you even make a single step forward towards God. Right?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Please.
Your Holiness, I understand that many members of the Ahmadiyyan community are at worst persecuted and at best treated with great hostility by some mainstream. Yes. Could you explain to me how this has come about and what the background to all this is?
Now, this question can be answered in the best way by posing a counter question.
Right.
Could you explain to me why the follower of Jesus Christ and he himself was so mercilessly persecuted?
Well, it's a complex
Give me one
question.
reason. Give me just one good reason. What was there in the teaching of Jesus Christ to offend people? The teaching said, if you are stabbed on one face, offer the other.
Yes, it was a change. It was a break from tradition. It was a power-based move in many respects.
You are close to it. The answer lies in the fact that although the society rejected him as a divine representation, they knew the message was potent.
Yes. Yes.
With revolutionary qualities. If this message is enacted, it is bound to win ultimately. Now, this realization of the society of ultimate defeat frustrated them.
Yes.
Otherwise, why to beat a man who offers his other cheek if you beat him on the one? So, exactly this is a repeat of the same in the relationship between Ahmadis and non-Ahmadis. There basically it was Jews who persecuted the Christians. The persecution started not at the hand of Roman Empire, but at the hand of Jews. And here are a non-Ahmadi people who are called Muslims, but to whom Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the founder of Islam himself, pointed out, to whom at whom he pointed as if they're the Jews reborn in the latter days. The Jews of the time of Jesus Christ, as if they have come back in exactly the same style, the same attitudes, the same crookedness, that the resemblance, he said, is so perfect, would be so perfect, as the resemblance between one of the pair of the shoes is to the other of the pair of the shoes. They just match perfectly together. Now, if this prophecy is true, and every Muslim believes it is true, the only difference is whether it's applicable to the situation today or not. The proof that it is applicable is provided by them themselves. They are reenacting the Judaic attitude to the followers of Jesus Christ in relation to the Ahmadis in their society. So that is the best proof that this prophecy was not only right, it has applied now. And they themselves are they themselves are offering us with evidence that look here, we are the people who were mentioned. Right? But another thing would happen also, which happened earlier. Despite Christianity being supported by apparently a very weak message, no soul to help it. Despite Christianity being confronted with the utmost major persecution, which grew in dimensions, and also other forces of wider play started playing a role in that too. Roman Empire became a partner with the Jews. Yet at every attempt to suppress Christianity by means of persecution, the result was that Christianity grew larger and bigger. This is the sign of divine interference, the divine role in the whole affair. Now, if that also is seen vis-a-vis Ahmadiyyat, then of course there is a proof that we are the same people who were to follow the advent of Jesus Christ when he would come again. Right? Thank you.
I'd like, if I may, to ask you a question concerning birthday parties.
That's right.
Parents of our local Jamaat were advised recently not to arrange birthday parties for their children, or to permit, I believe, their children to go to birthday parties. Could you explain the thinking behind that, please?
In fact, I have already spoken on this subject with relation to the first question addressed to me by this lady. Your name, please? I forgot.
Jennifer Osborne.
Jennifer?
Yes.
Osborne.
Yes.
Sorry. So Mrs. Jennifer Osborne inquired from me something. In response to that, I said that the right answer lies not in relation to the present day Christians or Muslims and their practices, etc., but in relation to the nascent days of Christianity or Islam or other religions. If the founders of those religions are found to behave in a certain manner, that is the true representative behavior of that religion. The rest must be considered as an outgrowth. So, I have never read of any prophet of Allah or any founder of religion whose birthday was celebrated by himself, by his followers, by his people, for a long time to come. So that shows that it has no religious significance anyway. You know, the most honorable people ever born are prophets. And if anybody has a right, that his birthday should be celebrated, they are the people whose birthday should be celebrated. But as I mentioned earlier, even their birthdays are, vaguely remembered. Nobody can definitely say that is their birthday. If that is the importance of birthday, then you shouldn't find this in application to the history of prophets or the life stories of prophets. On the other hand, there is a day which is the day of death. That is remembered by all. So the emphasis is more on the day of death rather than the day of birth. And that is why a poet, an Arab poet, said something so beautiful, it remains imprinted on your heart regarding this. Addressing the people in general, he says that remember that when you came to the world, only you were crying and all the rest were laughing around you. Remember that. But I advise you to die in a manner that it is only you who is laughing. All the rest are crying around you. What a beautiful thing to say. So the birth has no meaning, no significance. The significance is attached later on, is created later on in the course of life, which could be a very bad significance or a very good significance, either way. So why should we celebrate births which remain indeterminate? We don't know whether a good boy is born, a good man is born, or a bad man and bad girl is born. So this is just a practice of man. You celebrate this and celebrate that to remind Ahmadis that there is no real significance in this birthday celebration. And you should remember that no Prophet of Allah, is remembered through his birthdays. We have advised them not to do this, so that they accept things which they understand and do not blindly follow the cultures and customs. So this is a measure of reminding them that don't follow anything blindly. Please understand the meaning. If it's good, do it. But it is not prohibited on the scale of a religious injunction. That is what I must remind you. If somebody does it, we don't like it, but he is not told that you have broken a law of the Holy Quran or the injunctions of the Holy Prophet of Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. This is a grey area where no clear instruction is found. Only this is our inference from the study of the history of prophets. This is meaningless. But if somebody goes to a birthday party, why we do not encourage this is that people would expect him to invite them in turn. They have catered for things and made arrangements and he's welcome there. And when his turn comes, he doesn't invite anybody, any friend. So this is a very embarrassing situation for children. So that is why we say that it's better to avoid. If you join some party, it's not a crime, not a sin at all. It's just an ill-advised thing.
Thank you.
Please.
I'd like to know why can't men wear gold?
Bring it closer. Plaza, bring it closer to your mouth. Yes.
Why can't men wear gold?
Why can't men wear gold?
Yes.
Right? Some men do. In Africa, all the chiefs are laden with gold. You see, wherever man can appropriate everything and snatches away from woman, he would do that. They are the wives of the chieftains, are goldless. And the chiefs are laden from top to foot. The Holy Quran has spoken of gold in different ways, but judging from the Holy Quran, Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah, the founder of Islam, got a message that gold is a means of adornment for women, not for men. And let it remain for women alone. Let them be adorned. If you be adorned by the same precious metal, then it will also influence your attitudes. You will become more feminine in your character, and some odd behavior will be born out of this a bit, like we observe here in the West as well, and also in the East. The boys who are wearing some gold chain and this, hanging there, some necklace or something, immediately present themselves as a special personality of a special distorted sort. So, Rasulullah not only prevented men from wearing gold, but also from wearing silk. Leave them for your ladies. Let them be adorned and let them possess something of their own. But keep stuck to the manly beauty, which is strong character and greatness of your attitudes, kindness towards ladies and the weak and so on and so forth. So they are the characters, of course common to both men and women, but here men are supposed to specialize in this area of adornment as against ladies who can also use these things. And also it's quite natural too. I think everywhere, in every society, given chance, automatically women would like adornment like these, far more than men. So in case of the chiefs, it's not a sort of adornment, it's a show of power and strength, and an expression that we possess gold mines here, So it's only a display of richness. But ordinarily they are not always dressed in gold or wear gold. It's only on certain ceremonial occasions they have a display of pomp and power. But the basic human character is witnessed even in Africa, everywhere. Women always adorn themselves with this and that, and men walk straight as they are. So this injunction of the Holy Prophet is in line with human nature as displayed everywhere in the world. Right? This is different from the animal kingdom. Have you noticed that?
Yes.
There, the males have to adorn themselves. And God has done that too. It's a great transformation, a dividing line between the animal kingdom and the kingdom of man as he is perfected. Right, please?
Hazur, I believe that there have been many hospitals and schools established by the Ahmadiyya community with success in Africa.
Yes.
And with the state of the NHS and education in this country, have you ever considered employing the same scheme within this country? And that possibly might give our Jamaat within this country a wider profile.
You see, the situations are different. So fundamentally different that looking at it from various angles, we have tried before to find out the feasibility of such projects, and we found that time is not yet ripe for that. When in England we studied this, we discovered that the Ahmadi population is scattered far and wide all over the country. And one institution in one place will not be able to meet the requirement at all. People will have to send their children at extra cost, and other arrangements will have to be made, responsibilities will have to be accepted for their upbringing and character and so on and so forth. And it requires a lot of expenditure and a headache and staff, well-trained staff for this. And yet most of the Ahmadis will not be able to benefit from this. So why to cater for a very small minority when you can't take care of the majority, the remaining majority? So after discussing the pros and cons, we decided that perhaps it is only possible in such concentrated areas of Ahmadi population in Europe, where as day-to-day activity, most of the families living in the vicinity of such schools can benefit from its presence. So that was ruled out. But again, it comes up because of some negative influences from the society, some people say, all right, do something to save some at least. And only recently a proposal was sent to me from Sweden, where it was suggested that because the Swedish government funds the private schools now, very heavily in fact. So this is the time for us to go into this business there. But that also I found not feasible at all, for some reasons which don't need not to be discussed here. Although it was a very attractive opportunity, you know, the funding would be to the tune of at least 3 million or 4 million pounds worth of kronas every year. It's a big money, you know. Almost all the expenses of education will be borne. But when you go into further details of your responsibilities and the dangers attendant upon this, then you hesitate to rush forward. And it is still under study, but I doubt if it would mature. Again, the economic standard of the people here is very high. They can afford to build schools. A community like ours cannot afford to build schools even when aided by the governments. This is not the same situation as prevails in Africa, whereby small expenditure, at the cost of a small expenditure, you can achieve so much that the ratio of input and output is immense. So it is feasible there and not feasible there. If we don't do that there, a large section of the society will be left uneducated. If we do not do it here, no dent will be made. No, you know, but nobody would miss anything. Nobody would notice the absence of empty schools. Got the answer?
Yes,
Thank you. Please, if you have a question, please. We are close to the end, but not right there. 5 minutes more. Okay.
Keeping in mind that God says in the Holy Quran that the truly successful are those who purify themselves, is it possible for a person who is not a prophet to attain to a stage of a sinless life?
You see, there is no mention in the Holy Quran whatsoever about all people outside prophets being sinful. I have not read any reference. So obviously it's possible. It's obviously possible. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm always here. Perhaps our guests would...
of course, you're most welcome. The microphone, yes.
Your Holiness, this is a question to do with shaking of hands.
That's right.
I'm obviously English, and part of my culture, as opposed to a religious culture,
that, yes,
is to shake hands, and it's a sign of respect and something we're trained to do even as a child. And whenever I meet any of my yes, and I have to sort of almost sit on my hands. And the other aspect,
it's
very difficult. And the other aspect of it is within the Christian religion, as part of the service of Mass, anyway, Catholic Mass, we offer each other the sign of peace, and you shake somebody's hand, and you say it with the phrase, peace be with you, and you offer that to your neighbours. So again, I find, I wonder what the background is from that, and why I do have to sit.
Very briefly, I remind you to return to the early history of religions. You don't find anywhere Jesus Christ shaking hands with women and women shaking. No, is there? So there has to be some significance to that.
If I may just elaborate, this isn't just something that I find applies to the male-female relationship. I find it when I meet other ladies within the community. It's not a natural thing to do either.
Exactly. I'm coming to it. You see, this is, first of all, the embarrassment of the situation. It embarrasses me more than perhaps it ever did you. When I meet some ladies, sometimes, and out of mere respect and love, which is very pure, they extend their hands, and I have to keep my hand dangling by my side. It's a very, very difficult, very painful situation for me. So I always advise Ahmadis to pre-advise these ladies who come to meet me that for certain reasons, although it is not a very strong injunction which would lead you into sin or sinlessness, it's not of that nature. A small brush with a situation, that's all, which could lead you ultimately to sin or could not lead, that's a different, an open question. But for me, in my position, if I start doing it in public, where naturally in my behavior in public should be the same as in private, but sometimes the behavior in itself is not sinful. So there a demarcation has to be drawn between public and private behavior. For instance, I'll openly discuss this issue because it's not out of hypocrisy that I take a certain attitude. It is out of my understanding of how it should be. According to Islam, if a lady is grown in her age, if such a lady, uncovers herself and starts moving ordinarily because she is not a source of danger and nobody is a source of danger to her, then it is a different, relaxed atmosphere. So sometimes an old lady comes and while I'm alone, she extends her hand and I accept that because I feel it will be very disgraceful for her to have extended the hand I don't. Sometimes I have also done it in public. In Sweden, for instance, we were walking in a big plaza and suddenly an old lady rushed to me, saw me, and she was so somehow impressed by the whole style and things. She extended her hand and I did shake hand with her. Everybody was, amazed. So I told them, look here, these are the gray areas where sometimes you have to take a decision for the sake of Islam, for the sake of honor, for the sake of sensibilities of the people you meet. If you think it was a crime I committed, I feel it would have been a bigger crime if I had hurt her in that situation. She was not warned, and she, after all, she was an elderly lady anyway. So this reminds me of a talk on the table once in 1955 between late Sir Muhammad Zafrullah Khan Sahib and my late father, who was the head of the community there. So the Zafrullah Khan Sahib was, sometimes made a target of criticism by some other Ahmadis during his lifetime, that he does not take proper care in shaking hands. Sometimes he is seen to shake hands with even ladies. So Zafrullah Khan Sahib, knowing this criticism being leveled at him, asked my father that what should one do in a situation where the cultural values have taught ladies to extend their hands out of courtesy, and they don't know anything about the underlying wisdom of not permitting this. If they extend and I do not do it, will I be doing a service to Islam or disservice to Islam? Hazrat Muslim Maud, although he was very strict previously in this, while in Qadian and in Rabba, etc., in that atmosphere he never confronted this clash of two social trainings. So he waited for a while and said, yes, I understand. In such a situation, you may make shake hand. So after that, Zafrullah Khan, when he did it, he knew, he was fully confident, that I am well supported by the edict. But if this is used with greater license, unnecessarily, it may lead to that sinful state which is being prevented by not encouraging the free, touch of bodies and shaking of hands, etc. Because the time is over, I can't explain it further, but I hope you have got the message. Thank you so much. Yes. Is it over? Yes. Thank you very much for extending us a few minutes more.